Good morning from the National Weather Service here in Pocatello. My name is Carter, and this is your Southeast Idaho weather hazard briefing for Friday, July 8th. Due to a red flag warning in effect for fire weather zone 427 this afternoon, due to some very breezy winds and very low relative humidities. Thunderstorms are ongoing currently in the central mountains and will be trending at least further in coverage for this afternoon, but continued warm and dry weather is expected through the remainder of the weekend just for just about everybody as those storms trend north, and we'll be breaking that down for you this morning. Key points we're going to focus on today. Do some showers and thunderstorms currently working through the central mountains today and tomorrow. Location generally just going to be Custer and Lemhi County north around the Montana border region. And we do carry a marginal risk for some severe storms north of Challis today. And what that means, we could see some very gusty winds, hail, and brief moderate rain with some of those stronger storms. Those storms will continue to track further north throughout the weekend, so by Sunday things look mostly dry, just a few showers working through southwest Montana, but outside of that things are very dry for everyone. Red flag warning is in effect for 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. today, so just about noontime starting that off, and it's going to be for the Goose Creek, Raft River Valley area through the southern Sawtooth National Forest. And what we're seeing there is some breezy winds up to about 35 miles an hour with minimum relative humidities less than 15%, creating critical fire weather conditions in that area. Afternoon high today will be in the 80s to upper 90s with some increased fire danger widespread below 6,000 feet. Do see a brief cool down for your Sunday just by about 2 to 6 degrees, but we're going to see those breezy wind threat continue through the weekend for some quieter and warmer temperatures arrive for next week. And speaking of that, heat dome does arrive for next week with some potential heat risk concerns beginning on Tuesday. So a high pressure ridge overhead is going to bring abundantly clear skies and continued very dry and hot conditions. Going to have afternoon highs about 10 to 15 degrees above normal for this time of year and the 90s to low 100s as we get towards Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Monsoonal moisture push does arrive around that Thursday, Friday time frame, and we get taken at least a little bit more detail as we get closer to that. Satellite this morning, you could see some thunderstorms developing along the Montana border through the central mountains this morning. Expecting that to stay confined to the higher terrain. You can see it developing pretty much along this training line here in the central mountains with that boundary. But we will see some expansion further north, especially today in Custer and Lemhi County. So another pretty target area today will be up in the northern regions of our forecast area today. Weather risk outlook today, mainly concerns over the next 3 days. It's going to be those breezy winds. So we're going to have very dry conditions, especially across our lower elevations. So even though you're not in a red flag warning, there's going to be critical fire weather conditions, especially across our lower elevation zones. So for today, we do have a red flag warning for portions of the southern Magic Valley and South Hills, with some showers and storms, with the potential for some of those being severe up in Lemhi County. Breezy winds through the weekend, and we could see those storms trending further north and east for your Saturday, but by Sunday, things look to be in the clear outside of a passing shower through southwest Montana, and by Monday, lighter winds and very warm temperatures. So a slight cool down for your Sunday, Monday, but potential heat advisory concerns start next Tuesday. So something to keep in mind for next week. It's very warm and continued very dry conditions. Watches and warnings in effect. So most of western Utah is in a red flag warning. We continue that threat here in southwest Idaho, pretty much through the central area through Jackpot through Snowville. And you can see that extends up through the I-86 and I-84 corridors this morning. That'll be kicking off around noontime through 9 p.m. for some gusty winds and very low relative humidities. So if any fires do start in that region, they will have no problem spreading. Lightning and max wind gusts for yesterday. So we saw wind gusts approaching 50 miles an hour along the Continental Divide and through the central mountains with some of those thunderstorm outflow boundaries. And you can see where there's a fair amount of lightning, especially in the central mountains. One strike there in the Wood River Valley, but most of those strikes were contained to Custer and Lemhi County north. See a few strikes creeping out into the Snake Plain, but most of that activity was confined in Montana, where they had some golf ball-sized hail and very gusty winds further north today. Won't be seeing much of that down here, but again, carrying that threat just north of Challis today for some breezy afternoon winds associated with some of those stronger thunderstorms. Severe weather outlook today. You can see that marginal risk is going to be confined north of Challis all the way up into Montana through southwest, where that slight risk is picked up. But by tomorrow, we see that slight risk drift further east. An upper level low will be kind of departing northeast into western Canada. So those threat for thunderstorms is going to decrease again on Saturday, just carrying a slight chance again just in the Stanley Challis area up through about Salmon. And for your Sunday, it looks like we may see just a passing shower or two through the eastern highlands. But again, that threat looks to be mostly confined further east into Wyoming and Montana. Afternoon temperatures today, so this is looking at the afternoon highs for this afternoon. We will be in the mid-80s to near 95, 96 degrees in the Magic Valley, so pretty similar from what we've been seeing over the last few days with continued very dry conditions. Wind gusts this afternoon. We saw wind gusts again across the Snake Plain up to about 40 miles an hour. Should expect much of the same today, with that red flag warning in effect along our southern border for those stronger winds up to about 30, 35 miles an hour, creating some critical fire weather concerns. High temperatures for your Saturday, so let's take a look at the start of the weekend. Temperatures do drop by a few degrees, maybe 1 or 2, but we're still in the 80s to mid-90s for tomorrow afternoon with the continued very dry conditions. So some potential red flag highlights might be possible tomorrow as we do keep those breezy wind potential generally up to about 25 miles an hour. So slightly less breezy, but we're still seeing that potential across the Snake Plain for gusts up to about 30 to 35 miles an hour. And for Sunday, so we do have a dry shortwave that's going to be cutting off the northern extent of an upper-level ridge that's developed through our area. And what that means for us is we're just going to see slightly cooler temperatures. So temperatures for your Sunday are going to be overall pretty pleasant in the upper 70s to low 90s, so just about normal for this time of year with continued very dry conditions. Sunday's going to be the last breezy day of the week, and this will be kicking off a prolonged period of some very dry and relatively calm weather to start off next week, but one final day of some gusts up to about 30-35 miles an hour. And this is the start of Monday, so for next week, we have pretty similar temperatures for what we saw on Sunday in the 80s to low 90s, so fairly normal, typical times of this year for temperatures, but towards this afternoon, it's, again, keeping with those very dry conditions. And Tuesday, here things are going to be kicking off. So temperatures warm by about 3 to 8 degrees for your Tuesday. So we're in the mid-80s to mid-90s, pushing 100 degrees as you get towards the Magic Valley with, again, continued very dry conditions. This time we see those dry conditions spread well into the upper elevations. So lower elevation fire concerns for this week is going to spread further up north into the higher terrain as well. Still seeing, some snow up there as far as snowmelt ongoing. So not as much of a concern as far as those very high elevations, but certainly something to keep in mind headed into next week. For Wednesday, this is going to be the hottest day of next week as of current guidance. So we're going to be in the 90s for just about everybody. Low 100s as you get through Pocatello, Minidoka, Shoshone. And again, a very dry afternoon for your Wednesday. With those potential heat advisory concerns starting around that Tuesday through Thursday timeframe, you can see we are in, slightly shifted east for that bullseye of very likely above normal temperatures. So this is looking at the middle part of next week through the end of next week, July 13th through 17th. So we'll be seeing above normal temperatures continue through the remainder of the week. And we do start to see we're in a little bit more of an above favored, actually, for precipitation. So this time of year is our driest. So the fact that we're getting some moisture back into our area is kind of triggering some above normal precip possibilities. But we'll keep an eye on that for next week, how much monsoonal moisture actually arrives in our area. 8 to 14, keeping with those above normal temperatures, continuing all the way through July 21st. So keeping with that above normal trend continuing through the middle part of July. And keeping with at least near normal precipitation, you can start to see that high pressure ridge beginning to build back into our west with a slight more inundation of some moisture here into the central Rockies. But outside of that, the inundation further north does look fairly limited, but again, we'll be keeping a close eye on that through the coming weeks. And in summer this morning, do some showers and ongoing thunderstorms today across Custer and Lemhi County. May see a few of those bleed over across the Montana border into the eastern highlands, but that threat looks to be further north. Could see some strong storms north of Chalice today. Some impressive wind gusts, about 50 miles an hour. Hail and some brief moderate rain with some of those stronger storms, but everybody else will stay very dry and very warm this afternoon. Red flag warning is in effect from noon to 9 o'clock today for the Goose Creek, Rift River Valley area through the southern Sawtooth National Forest. Seeing afternoon highs in the 80s to upper 90s with some critical fire weather conditions across much of our lower elevations, especially across the Snake Plain, Magic Valley, and southern lower elevations. Seeing a brief cool down for Sunday, but by the next week, we're having a heat dome arrive for next week, and that's going to bring some heat risk concerns with potential heat advisory concerns arriving for Tuesday. So Tuesday through Thursday of next week going to be very warm. Afternoon highs about 10 to 15 degrees above normal, again in the upper 90s to low 100s as you get further south. Monsoonal moisture does arrive for the end of next week, so Thursday, Friday, start to see some weak precipitation chances get back in. We'll be kind of tracking that over the next week to see exactly how much moisture we're working with. But that wraps up your weather briefing for today, Friday, July 8th. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please feel free to send us an email, give us a call, or check out some information on our website. Have an awesome weekend.